Good morning. This is Pastor Brewer Erickson from Zion Lutheran Church here in Farmington, New Mexico. This is Promissio, a pilgrimage of faith. Our devotion this morning is for Thursday after the 17th Sunday of Pentecost, and our text is Deuteronomy 8, 7 through 20. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains, and springs flowing out in the valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive trees and honey, a land in which you will eat bread without scarcity, in which you will lack nothing, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills you can dig copper. You shall eat and be full, and you shall bless the Lord your God for the good land he has given you. Take care lest you forget the Lord your God by not keeping his commandments and his rules and his statutes, which I command you today. Lest when you have eaten and are full and have built good houses and live in them, and when your herds and flocks multiply and your silver and gold is multiplied, and all that you have is multiplied, then your heart be lifted up, and you forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, who led you through the great and terrifying wilderness, with its fiery serpents and scorpions, and thirsty ground where there was no water, who brought you water out of the flinty rock, who fed you in the wilderness with manna that your fathers did not know, that he might humble you and test you, to do you good in the end. Beware lest you say in your heart, my power and my might of my hand have gotten me this wealth. You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may confirm his covenant that he swore to your fathers as it is this day. And if you forget the Lord your God, and go after other gods and serve them and worship them, I solemnly warn you today that you shall surely perish, like the nations the Lord makes to perish before you. So you shall perish, because you would not obey the voice of the Lord your God. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. When you have eaten and are full and have built good houses and live in them, then your heart be lifted up, and you forget the Lord your God. Deuteronomy 8:12 and following. Such a little background on this whole thing. So, Deuteronomy is the fifth book of Moses. In many other Bibles and other languages, it's just translated the fifth book of Moses. We call it Deuteronomy. It's a second giving of the law. Nomi meaning law, Deutero meaning two. So the second law, the second giving of the Ten Commandments. Moses gives them. This is really his Deuteronomy is a sermon that Moses gives right before he perishes and the Israelites take the land of Israel. It was a very long sermon. But in any case, that's what's going on here. And so he's preparing the people. And he's saying, listen, you're going to go into this land. And you're going to take it over. God is going to give this land to you. And you're going to become incredibly wealthy. And when that happens, don't forget who gave you that wealth. Now, there's always a bit of caution that a person should take when we're looking at the Old Testament. And that is the promises God makes to Israel are not directly promises that he makes to anybody else. We don't have any way of coming in and signing our name on that contract and making this all about America, for instance. It was about Israel. But we can learn some things from this because Israel's a picture of the church, the Christian church, the church for whom Christ died. When Christ comes and he dies on the cross, he institutes a new Israel, the church of God in this world. That's why he chooses 12 disciples and so on to represent the 12 tribes of Israel, etc. So there is some of this that comes along. Now, one of the things that we take away from this is that any success, any joy, any happiness that we have in this world is not something that we've brought about ourselves. It is something that God has given to us. And this is true whether or not you are a Christian. God is the source of your happiness in this world. Because everything that we have in this world comes from the hand of God, who was all created by him. He doesn't care if you recognize him or not. He still created you. He would rather you recognize him. Doesn't care is kind of not the word to say, but he's a reality whether you believe in him or recognize him. So, we hear the preacher say, in Ecclesiastes, who can enjoy life apart from God? Well, we need to keep this in mind. When we have these wonderful blessings of this world, we're living in America. It's not the Israel of the Old Testament. And yet, we live in a country that has an incredibly high standard of living. I often tell people I'm a capitalist. I'm not a socialist because I saw when I was 5, I went to East Germany. I saw what that did. That stuck with me. I traveled the world by the time I was 8. Been to Africa and back. And it always struck me that, in America, our poor people are much richer than some of the people that were considered well off in those other places. We live in a country where it's become a sign of poverty that a person is overweight. don't know what to make of that. Where I lived in Africa, being overweight was a sign of wealth. And it was something that brought people a lot of respect. That was an opinion they wanted to seek out. Sometimes I think maybe I should go there. I might feel better about my weight problem. But, that was the complete opposite here. I mean, that's a really incredible thing that we've brought about in this country. I tend to be a little cautious about socialist endeavors in our government because I don't think it does the world any good. I tend to think that it holds people back, it holds society back, and ultimately the people that it's trying to help are people that get hurt by it even more. But that's, another story. We have an incredibly high standard of living here in America, and oftentimes people try to make us feel guilty about it. That somebody that's that rich couldn't possibly be a Christian or anything. One thing I try never to do is begrudge another person his paycheck. Try never to do it. It's coveting, it's envy, it's gross, it's disgusting. Trying to tell somebody how to spend the money that God has given them. Again, I'm a pastor. Encourage people to give what they can with a cheerful heart. But always recognize this, and this is the thing. Being wealthy is not a sin. What is a sin is not recognizing who it is that is the source of your wealth. And that's God. Now, there are perhaps sinful ways that people amass wealth. That's another story too. There's sinful ways that people amass poverty, for that matter. But oftentimes I get people who think that it's too good to be a Christian. This is why everybody is left. Well, it's not like hardship produces Christians either. We have to be aware of who is the source of our wealth. It's God, who sent his Son to die for us, to give us untold wealth in heaven that'll make the wealth here look like poverty. And so we look forward to that day when we get to enter into the real promised land. Not Israel, but heaven. Let's bow our heads. Lord, help us to always remember you as the source of all that we have, that we might receive the blessings, even the earthly blessings you have given us, with great joy. And also to remember always to give what you have given us to give. We are just stewards here of that which you have entrusted to us, that it might be used for your benefit as well as ours. Amen.